so thrilled you're here, for people who are here physically in the space, and for people who are joining us online. I am Annie Heiderscheid, Director of the Cambridge Institute for Therapy Research, and it is my distinct pleasure, and the distinct pleasure of our entire CIMTR team, to welcome Dr. Mark Ettenberger, not only to CIMTR, but back to ARU. Let me tell you just a little bit about Mark. He is an ethno-music therapist who came from Austria, but he completed his PhD in music therapy here at ARU. Yes. What year do you want to tell us that information, or do you want to keep that concealed? 2016. He's also trained in rhythm breath lullaby at the Louis Armstrong Center for Music and Medicine in New York, and he holds an MA in Peace Studies and Conflict Resolution from the UNESCO Chair of Philosophy and Peace at the University of Spain. He currently lives and works in Bogota, Colombia, where he is the director of SONA, Central Music Therapy, and lectures at various university programs internationally. He coordinates music therapy services for several hospitals in Colombia and has specific interest in researching music-based interventions in medicine-based settings. And he's going to talk specifically tonight on music therapy songwriting with at-risk parents in the neonatal intensive care unit, which is an international multi-center mixed methods randomized controlled trial. So whether you are here in this space or online, please join me in welcoming Dr. Mark Ettenberger.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome to you here. Welcome to those who joined online. I'm not sure how many music therapists are joining us today, particularly online. So the neonatal intensive care unit is a place where infants are hospitalized, as the name says, because they require intensive care. Usually we find very different problems that infants might have. So one large group of participants of music therapy and people we work with in the NICU are preterm infants, that are born before the 37th week of gestation. But we work with very, very small infants too, from 24 weeks onwards, 350, 360 gram. They are part of the music therapy program. But then in the NICU, you also have full-term infants. This might be due to heart diseases or congenital diseases or just complications during the birth process. So it's a variety of different needs, and you know, the staff is also very diverse. You have intensive care specialists, you have respiratory therapists, you have surgery team. So it depends a little bit on the complexity, but just give you a background about the NICU itself. And yeah, today a little about a specific method we use in music therapy when working particularly with parents. So as you can imagine, when parents have a baby and an infant has to be hospitalized in the NICU, there might be several okay. Yes, now. So there are mental health difficulties that parents might experience. These are related mostly what we know from the literature and what we also see from our clinical work. Sometimes they have elevated levels of anxiety or stress. Many times they have other siblings at home they need to take care of. Many times the mother might also still be hospitalized, because usually if it's a preterm birth, most often this takes place in an emergency cesarean section. So it might be that the mother herself is hospitalized while the infant is already in the NICU. And then fathers have to take care of a lot of things, and partners. Postnatal depression also often happens that parents show signs of postnatal depression. And Well, there's a line of thoughts that although these are mental health risks for parents, this also might impact the infants, because we know that from research that parents that have a so-called psychosocial risk they tend to be a little bit less sensitive to the communication cues of the infant. So it's harder for parents, for example, who have depressive symptoms, to recognize when a baby is crying for what reason. The baby is hungry, if there's pain involved. So the communicational cues are a little bit more difficult to be interpreted, and we know that this less sensitivity and stress and depressive symptoms are at times associated with more insecure attachment patterns, and these insecure attachment patterns are again associated with greater risk for psychosocial behavior and cognitive problems of the infant in late life. So it's not just that mental health difficulties of parents stay between the parents, they might have also an effect on the infant itself. So what we also know is that there seems to be an interconnectedness of mental health between mothers and fathers and partners. So particularly related to anxiety and depression. So it might be that if the father shows signs of depression, there is a higher chance that the mother also shows signs of depression, anxiety, and the other way around. So particularly anxiety and depression, there seems to be an interconnection. And from one of our own studies that we did, this was taken from the long step sample, to which I will get back later on. So where we were looking at if, paternal anxiety responding in mothers, which we showed that it did not, but we did find that maternal depression predicted paternal anxiety at baseline and discharge. So there was a correlation between the depression levels of mothers and the depression levels of fathers. So why is this relevant? Because I think it just calls for a systemic approach. I think we just cannot see either parents isolated, nor the mother, nor the father, nor the infant isolated. So it's really a system that is constantly interacting and exchanging information. And so this type of systemic approach is just very, very important when working, I think, not only as a music therapist in NICU, but as every healthcare professional. And one of these ways of thinking music therapy in a systemic way is part of what's called family-centered care. It's actually a very collaborative approach to healthcare. And this is also something in which we as music therapists, as it's a collaborative approach, we just step down from our idea of being an expert and doing things for parents and infants to that of a collaborator and doing things, music with the parents and the infant. And there are several key aspects of family-centered care that are important. It's all about, sharing information, about really getting to know the parents and the differences in their culture, collaborating and work together. There's a lot of negotiation going on. We constantly negotiate with parents, if they want music therapy, how, when, at what time, what would they like to do, what is the music that we are going to do, and so on. And it's a lot also about knowledge transfer. So how can we empower parents to use music for their own health and well-being, but also for that of the infant during and after hospitalization. So it's really a sort of working together, and obviously takes into account the family system, because we know that there are, life outside the NICU continues. There might be issues related to the workplace of the parents. They might have other siblings at home. There might be a support from the family system or not. So these are all things that influence not only the infant's trajectory, but also, how parents can cope with these mental health risks. However, we also know that this does not really apply for every parent. And I think that's really important to mention. That's not an automatic thing. Oh, I have an infant in the NICU, so you will have anxiety and stress. There's a risk for that, but we know that coping and how parents cope with specific stresses or with having new infant in the NICU is very different from each family to each family. We also know that resilience and coping depend on many different factors. Personal factors involved, about personality traits, but then there's also the support system that's very important. We always ask parents who is helping them, who is supporting them. Are there maybe grandparents around? Are there other family members? Basic things like who is taking care of the laundry at home, who is helping you to cook some decent meals, because parents are all day long basically in the ICU. So this is dependent on very different factors. And we also know that mothers and fathers cope different. So you might know that from your personal spaces where your partners or whatever cope very different, and this is very much true. And there's some research suggesting that mothers are much more expressive in sharing their emotions and working and going back to work has been shown actually to be an important coping factor for fathers. So there's different ways of dealing with the stressors, and I think when working with parents, musically it's important to know more or less how a specific parent is working, because this will also in partly define what approach are you taking, and even what type of music or what type of method or what type of technique you're choosing to work musically with parents. And another thing is that it is, and that's good news, I think NICUs across the globe has very much improved in how they welcome parents in the NICU. So now hospitals have maybe a room where parents can stay overnight. In Colombia, for example, kangaroo care, parents hold the baby, skin-to-skin contact is really important. So parents would be there basically all day, having physical contact with their infants. And if hospitals have a kangaroo care program, infants can also go home relatively early. I've worked at hospitals where infants are sent home at 33 weeks. And 24 hours kangaroo care at home. So, and I think this has very much improved, how parents can deal with the stresses, because there have been times when parents have not been allowed to see their baby or to have access, to the NICU, and this must be quite a difficult situation. So the improvement of, family-centered care and person-centered care philosophies is also something that's important to bear in mind. What do we know about research about parental mental health in music therapy research in NICU? And we don't know too much, to be honest. There seems to be quite mixed results. So there are meta-analyses out, there are studies out that they do show a statistically significant effect, particularly on state anxiety, so the type of anxiety that parents feel at the moment, and this is particularly true for mothers. But then there's also been a recent Cochrane review just published in last year, and they showed that they could not confirm that music therapy did have a significant effect. And this has obviously many potential reasons. But just to let you know, there's still not like a real decision, how and why, mechanisms is still something that's very unexplored. Can music therapy help in parents, improve their mental health? And then from the long step study, this was a study, a 5 years multi-center international randomized controlled trials where we participated and we recruited more than 200 families. This was really a huge study led by Claire Getty and the team from Norway. And then we had also sites in Poland, in Israel, in Argentina, in Colombia. I think there were all 8 hospitals across the 5 countries. And we were looking at if parent-led and infant-directed singing supported by a music therapist. So having a music therapist, support parents to sing for their infants, if this would have an effect on, on bonding, on postnatal depression, on anxiety, and stress, and on infant development. So we followed up actually the infants over 2 years after birth, but we did not find any significant differences between the intervention and control groups. And even though music therapy reduced anxiety more than in the control group, there were no significant findings. So one of the questions I also asked myself, we asked ourselves, is why is it not happening? There's so many different possibilities from the intervention itself, because it's very specific intervention. We also discussed, are the questionnaires really measuring what they should measure in a way? We were talking about different time points, for example, that's something we know when parents go home, for example, which is a classic time point for outcome measures. If you think about pre and post music therapy process, and when parents go home, they are relieved, but they're also anxious because now they have to take care for their infant. So there's a lot of discussion around what's an optimal time point for, measuring something like anxiety or depression, because it's a very ambivalent moment when parents go home. They're happy and scared at the same time. And so we also discussed, obviously, this possibility. And the other thing is what we saw is that on general terms, parents seem to cope relatively well with their mental health risks in NICU. And this due to the reasons I mentioned before, NICU culture has changed, accessibility of parents. Many parents have psychological support, and psychiatrists. So there's been a lot of attention over the last years giving also to parental mental health, and this obviously improves. And so we found that if something goes relatively well, there's not a lot of space to improve. So that was one of the conclusions also that we got. So we thought about a study where we would not invite everyone or recruit every parent, but just those parents who already have a risk for mental health. So this is somehow the background, how we arrived at this new study to take care of a specific population within the wider NICU population of parents that already have a risk for mental health. And it is, again, a multi-center international mixed method task. And mixed methods also, when we in Longstead, we worked with so many families, and the general response was very, very well from parents. Parents, they like music, that they can express that it helped them, but we did not have any qualitative measures. We didn't do any interviews. The team from Israel did a separate study, a qualitative one, but in general, within the study design, there was not really a place for qualitative data. So in this study, we also incorporate qualitative data. So there are 4 sites in Colombia, and then we work with one site also in Poland. We will include 106 families across the different sites. This is the fabulous research team from Poland on the left, from Colombia on the right. Different medical doctors involved, music therapists, epidemiologists, and so on. So this is really a fantastic team. And there's some particularities of the study. First, we will recruit parents that have a risk for mental health difficulties, and this makes it already quite complex because we have to give them a sort of measurement before they're invited to the music therapy study. So the whole study is divided in two phases. The first one is a pre-screening of anxiety and depression, where we use the Ettenberger postnatal depression scale and the general anxiety disorder scale. And we invite all parents that have infants with less age than 33 weeks. This can be from 32.6 up down to 24 weeks. And once parents fill out these two questionnaires and they score above the cutoff of either of the two scales, either the mother or the father or both, because we know about the interconnectedness. So if the mother scores above the cutoff for depression, both parents will be invited to the study because we know there is an increased risk if the mother has depression that the father might also have either this depression or anxiety. So this is quite a logistical task because we do this within the first 72 hours after birth. So when a baby is born in one of the NICUs, within the next 3 to maximum 4 days, we approach parents. And this is challenging because sometimes parents are, the mother is still might herself be in the ICU and so on. So it is complicated, but that's how we decided to do it. And then if one or both are above this cutoff, then parents are invited again for the next phase. And each phase, has an informed consent, it's for the procedure, known ethics. So it's been quite some work involved. But then we can really work with this study, with this population that has already a mental health risk. And for the quantitative part of the study, so the main outcome is postnatal depression. And then we will also look at anxiety, at mental well-being, and at stress. And then we have 2 measures about resilience and coping that are not outcome measures as such, because there are no short-term changes expected, but we will see if these are moderators or mediators for some of the other things like anxiety and depression. Because what I mentioned in the beginning, like resilience and coping is such diverse, and how parents deal with that situation is diverse. So, and then the qualitative part, we will do semi-structured interviews with about 20 to 25 parents, and then we will do a semantic analysis and analyze this data. Are you all right? Good. So, songwriting itself, clinically, we work a lot with songwriting. We write different songs for different occasions. We write welcome songs for parents, we write songs for sleeping, we write goodbye songs. When, in case infants are transitioning to end-of-life care, we write also songs where the parents can say goodbye. So it's a really kind of flexible, engaging, interactive way of, helping parents, on the one hand, expressing how they feel, what they think, what's going on. On the other hand, they can work on a project. And that is something actually fathers do very much like songwriting, at least at the NICUs we work. They're the ones that most say, yeah, let's do that. Probably because they have a specific project they can work on, which seems to be something cross-culturally interesting for fathers. And there's different songs that we create. So if we think about song creation, we create everything, the music, the lyrics, but then we also sometimes do song parody where we adapt the lyrics of a known song and then keep the music the same, but then we will change the lyrics. And this could be from everything, just, finding a place where to put the name of the infant to, whatever. And for the lyrics, we would often invite parents to write a letter. So if we think about song creation, and this is wonderful when also the other siblings at home. So at home they just can, sit down with the siblings or themselves and write a letter to the infant, about how they feel, what they think, and so on. And this letter then we take part of the lyrics for the song. We'd also brainstorm, and then if they're family members, so this is something very intimate, just the parents. But then we also do songs with the whole family network, and everyone via WhatsApp or text messages can send a phrase, and then we would collect that, and then we would very often record that song and send it back to the family, so they can tell us, no, I would like to have a piano, what about this, I don't like the phrase, and we would collectively create the song that reflects, the love everyone feels for that family member that's hospitalized. Sometimes we would just improvise songs and see, you know, what phrases or what parts of the lyrics would be good for the song. And with the music, we would discuss with parents for what goals the song will be used. That's quite important because it also gives us a chance at the same time to educate, you know, what type of music for what situation. So parents can decide that would like to have a song for playing or for bathing, you know, or for sleeping. And then we would discuss which musical elements might be most suitable for that specific goal. Often parents ask for examples because mostly they don't know music. Sometimes we would, you know, just provide a few chords, see if they like that. So it's an ongoing negotiation. You know, families think it's really, it's ongoing, looking what is really fitting this specific family culture. It's most basically every song is based on music preferences. So we wrote rap songs to heavy metal songs to traditional Colombian songs. So there are so many ways. Sometimes the siblings write a letter. We have to, you know, decipher it and like, but with the help of this, and they would learn. Sometimes siblings, that's really nice. They would also color it, and then we can stick it to the incubator of the baby. So it becomes part of the, you know, the decoration. Before, yeah, a couple of years ago, there were still CDs, so parents started to decorate very much. We actually complete CDs, 10 songs recorded in many ways, and then sometimes parents put the prints of the baby's feet on the CD, and so it's an all, it's a kind of creative thing going on. And now with the online version, because CDs are not as useful anymore, it was really good for the booklet. That was sort of very creative part. And now when we use the online version, then they can put in some lyrics and pictures and everything. So it's really quite a lovely and creative and interactive work of the parents. And it's really very much appreciated by the parents. And so it's something we do quite a lot. And within the study, we will use 3 weeks up to 9 music therapy songwriting sessions. Normally, 9 sessions for writing a song is probably a lot. Sometimes we write songs in a single session, but we wanted to give parents really time to think about it, you know, to get the music. And it can be one or various songs anyway. So parents have just the option. And usually we would start off in the first session, you know, asking about parents, get to know them, discussing options for the songs, what should the song be, for what purpose, and so on, getting to know them musically also. And then in the next sessions, we would just work on the song. We'll probably sing a part of it and record a part of it, and, you know, discussing the lyrics, what fits, what not, and so on. And then in the last sessions, we would finish the recording and, you know, and create the booklet or the online version. So this is more or less the structure for the study. And it's just really about engaging parents in a very creative way, and that allows for both expressing emotions, thoughts, and ideas, but also, you know, keep them engaged in a very interactive and supportive way in a project that transcends a single session. You know, and that's the nice thing about songwriting, really. It's both about the process and the product. And both things are important. And the product is really nice for, you know, giving this NICU experience a different meaning. Because then people and parents go back and have the music they created, they have the song, you know, and then there's some caring and loving and creative meaning attached to this experience that can be quite frightening, actually. Um, ah, I will show you a short video, I think, from one of the mothers of the study, who sent it to me just 2 days ago, and she agreed that I can show this video to you. So this is just the music therapist and her with the infant singing part of the song. It's obviously in Spanish, but I translated the lyrics.
Ver tus ojitos todos los días, me llena el alma de alegría. Eres tal y como un día te soñé, por eso mi milagro de amor te llamaré. Tú eres mi luz, siempre te amaré. Toma mi mano, te sostendré. Estaré aquí a tu lado. Nunca solo vas a estar.
Yeah, you get the idea, right? It's really a very beautiful work parents do. And it's just amazing how creative parents get and how well they are capable of musically expressing what they feel. And it's really an amazing way of working with parents. And that's the booklet the mother designed. So he seems to be a cat person. Maybe they have cats at home. And putting in some of the pictures and both parents worked on the lyrics actually. So it's a very creative way. So where we now at the study, we received ethics approval. That's a good. It was a hard one because there's 2 phases, so we needed 2 informed consents and everything. The study is registered. We have published the protocol, and we aim. So data collection started last July, and we aim by the end of the year, hopefully get them. Currently, we have 74 participating families in phase 1 and 32 out of the 106 in phase 2. So it's going relatively, not as quick as I hope for. But this is also because this specific population is just a small fraction of the larger NICU parent population. It's really those who have a mental health risk. And of all those who are not that much, not everyone wants to participate. So it will take some time, but we will get there. Okay, so a couple of conclusions before I will leave some space for questions also. I think, yes, there is an increase in families in purpose-centered care, but many NICU studies, at least in music therapy, still focus on the infants. And I think that's perfectly fine, but thinking about how the trajectory of the infant is connected with the parents and how these systems constantly interact, I think we're at the moment at the place where hopefully there will be more research on including parents actively to the music therapy studies. I think that would be very, very good. Also because we need larger data and more data for really, get to a conclusion what, why, when, how music therapy can be helpful. And another thing is that there are not really much studies about music therapy and parents who already have mental health risks. So we haven't found any actually. And it is a very specific population, but it is important for us because we need to allocate our resources to ones who might potentially benefit most. So we are at the spot where we hospital asked us to think how can we prioritize, how can we decide with whom we work and with whom not, and based on what, because there might be an infant who might need music therapy more, for example, post-surgery and pain, acute pain, and then you have parents, but if, so how do you decide? And we have a large team, we do work a lot, we work a lot in the NICU, actually, of the 11 hospitals, I think 5, 6, 7, 8 hospitals have NICUs. So, but obviously it's not, we wouldn't work with everyone, shouldn't also, I think. So how can we allocate our resources? How can we make informed decisions about with whom we start to work and not? So thinking about specific populations within the NICU realm, and NICU universe, it could be something where we can make more informed decisions to say, okay, let's focus on these parents or not. And songwriting is quite a powerful method, and because it's about the process and the product, and parents are engaged in a project that can last several weeks. So obviously this is a study, so we will stick to the protocol. And clinically, you would probably do a lot of different things with parents over the course of several weeks. So maybe you start a song, and then they do a receptive session, and then you sing, and then you go back to the song, and so on. So it's a little bit different, but yeah. So, and I think it's ideal to also involve both mothers and fathers, and even if the fathers, for example, are not at the NICU, or the mothers, they still can participate in writing the lyrics, they still can participate in writing the songs. Sometimes when we record the songs, we've come up with it works quite good. We send the recording of the song to the father via WhatsApp, and the father listens to it with the headphone and sings over it with a speech message. So the music is not there, but the father is in tune, and then we can put that into the song and it fits. And songwriting, we do that actually in the maternity ward also. We use it perinatal grief, we use it. Sometimes we start writing a song when the mother still is pregnant in the ICU, and then the infant is the NICU, and then we continue the song and so on. So one of the questions, this might be overwhelming. It's something that I particularly thinking about parents who might have elevated levels of anxiety. So far, the feedback from the clinicians is quite positive. They're accepting well, they're engaged, as you saw also in the video. But sometimes, and that's the thing with a study, you then just cannot, change the protocol midway around. So you will have to stick with it. But I was thinking about if there's really more severe depression, for example, is it a little bit too much responsibility for parents? There are several ways to work with that, obviously. Parents don't have to do everything. Song parodies, just less engagement because there's already a known song and you just can, change a few words if you wish to. But it's just, it's something that I was really thinking about as one of the challenges. So, yes, I'm not sure if there are any questions, any comments, any thoughts about it, whether from you or from the participants online. Thank you.
Questions online, and I'm guessing we're going to have some questions here. So maybe we can do kind of a little back and forth in taking those questions. For those of us who are here live, when you've got your questions, I would maybe ask Mark if you can repeat those for the online participants. Yes. So everybody can kind of be engaged, not only with what the question is, but then your answer to this.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, sure.
You want to start with an online question?
Sure, let's pick one here. So there's a long question here. So I'll try to summarize it, reading it quickly. So saying, that in her practice or his practice, or I find a lot of parents defer the music making to me, and some get there over time as rapport is built or as their confidence grow, while some remain there through their admission. So are you screening in some way to include families who are up for diving into songwriting? Or do you have some families who are a bit resistant to songwriting, and how do you manage this?
Well, clinically, that's relatively easy because if parents are not into songwriting, we do something else. So there's so many ways of working with parents, from singing, to receptive session, guided relaxations, infant directed singing. So there's so many ways. So if you work clinically, it's not a problem. There's many different ways of working. In the study, parents already know that it is about songwriting, because in the formed consent and when we explain the study, they know it is about. So I think then they already are into songwriting or think that it could be something. So we haven't really discovered much resistance to songwriting as a method as such. And actually clinically also not. So then it's also a little bit about, the music therapist when proposing something like songwriting. So if parents have siblings at home, something we just would usually say, if you have a sibling at home and sometimes siblings feel they're not really part, parents are not there because they're at the NICU. The belly is not there anymore because it's already, but the baby is all not here. So children are like 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. They struggle a little bit then, and then it's just a great way of engaging them. And so we haven't had much resistance on songwriting, but
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
Questions from the room?
You're all live participants. Participants who are present in this space, I guess.
Yes.
It's brilliant with the songwriting and all how it works, and the consequences that you've drawn from the, let me say, pediatric study, to some degree how it needs to focus also on that family system in which the child is growing up or is going into. So I wonder, because you were about that publication, publication, you said there are some incongruities or some. Would you like to expand a bit on that? Why you think the outcome of the 2 arms, 3 arms, whatever, over the centers were, let's say, not significant?
You mean from the long step study?
Long step,
Yeah.
I mean, I know it might be tricky to speak
No.
on this and that in what,
Yeah.
what your opinion,
Yeah.
what your ideas.
Yeah. So the question was about the long step study and why there could be non-significant results. I think one of the main reasons we ended up with the study with Lucia, she was part of the long step team from Poland, and she is the other PI, was that we just saw that in general terms, parents seemed to cope well, at least at the sites that we had and the countries that we had. And this might be due to all the, the improvements in family-centered care anyways. But there was like, depression was about, at least in Colombia, I know the Colombian numbers, for fathers, it was about 18% of the population had over threshold depression, and mothers, it was about 19%, and anxiety was like 15 to 20%. So that has been a trend. So in general terms, and some of that mental health risks are also because of the immediate impact of having a preterm birth, and many of them just decline over time when parents start to adopt and understand what's happening, and if they see that the baby on the one hand can survive, and the second hand will not have, long-term neurological complication. That's another big issue for parents. And if they see, okay, now my baby is, 33 weeks, starts eating, it's just, it's evolving, so we are going through this, then usually depression, anxiety, gets somehow lower anyways. So that was one of the main reasons we thought, okay, if something is not bad, not so bad as we probably thought. There's just, you know, if you have a scale from 0 to 10 and then everyone scores a 2 at baseline, to get, you know, to really have a statistical improvement, then it's a very thin space. So, and I think also we're thinking a lot about the method. That's why we choose songwriting. I know parent-led and infant-direct singing is a wonderful way of working with parents, but at least in Colombia, people are very creative anyway, so they really want to do something, and sometimes I feel like just, you know, being able to support parents in them singing over a longer period of time, sometimes they get bored. It's like, what else can I do, you know? So they're in songwriting is just great because engaged in a project that lasts. So that's the other thing.
I
Yeah.
think my question, if I, because I think it ties in so nicely with what you just said, because, you know, I think, you know, in a critical care setting like a NICU, you have so little choice. And, you know, where we can offer choice, it allows people to exercise their sense of agency.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned just that creativity. And so I wonder if, you know, I know you're still in the midst of the study, but are you finding even just clinically that, you know, when people, and they get to make choice in the songwriting process.
Yeah.
Are you finding that it's fostering that sense of agency
Yes.
and their ability to, their opportunities to make choices in that process?
So the comment was about choices and control. So locus of control, we know, is something very relevant because parents feel very often in NICU they have no, and actually they don't have control, you know, when visiting hours was, when babies are being fed, when they are bathed. So it's a lot of the care is externalized. And then, so I think the tricky part is how much choice would be overwhelming. And this depends from parent to parent and family to family. Some parents feel very well with structure and they say, no, just tell me what to do and when and how. And they're really looking for that sort of more directive, you know, way of working. And some are really happy with a lot of choices. So if we see that choice may be overwhelming, we just step back a little bit, you know, or we propose things, or we just make decisions also, you know. We know specific things about music in healthcare, so we can make an informed decisions also, because parents often don't know. So we don't ask, you know, why and how and every time, but it is a tricky path between, but control is and clinically we see it's very much helping them. They like it, they love it, they share the songs with the families, you know, they're just really engaged.
So we have lots of questions online as well. So a few questions from Professor Helen Odell Miller. She noticed that guitar is used a lot, or at least in what you've shown. And so she was just wondering, or commenting upon this, is it cultural reasons or the rationale for that?
So it's true, we use guitar a lot. Culturally, it's a very, very appropriate instrument. There's a lot of Colombian music, you know. Guitar is something that's very close to culture. That's one thing. Second thing, I think it's very easy to play standing up, because we really work a lot standing up. And you know, there's the 80s piano where you can have like playing like that. But you know, playing piano standing up or just having it on lap, it can be a little bit hard. And it's a very versatile instrument. You can do whatever musical parameter, you know, rhythm or harmony or melody, you know, creating atmosphere. It's just very versatile, I think. So it's just something that fits very well. And we have other instruments. So we have ocean drums. For my own study, the PhD, I used the harp. It was also nice because it's like why what's that harp? It gives attention. But we keep it very analog in the NICU in particular, because one of our goals, if we think seriously about, you know, humanization of care, is, you know, how can we in this high-tech environment where you have mechanical ventilation and ECMO and all these monitors, how we can introduce something that's very innately human, and that's analog instruments, not thinking about iPad and which other applications in music that were very good. So we really try to stay more old school, but consciously. So that's fine.
And Helen's also wondering about music therapy training in Colombia. Because she's wondering what the entry level is for training there, or whether you have a lot of international music therapists like yourself going to work there.
Well, I think there are music therapists that train abroad and come back. So that's a trend that we have seen. Some train in Spain, some train in the US or in other countries, and then they come back. And then in Colombia, there's a master's program at the National University, and the entry level is it's a master, so everyone needs an undergraduate title, but it's open. They don't have to be musicians. I think in the UK you have to be a musician, right, for entering music therapy. So they're not. So we have medical staff, anthropologists, musicians, educators, everyone who has a basic knowledge in music. They have to do an exam in music. But yeah, that's the training.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any there's lots of questions online. Are there any questions from the room? Should we go online?
Yeah.
Okay. So another question here is about whether the recording process was as important as the songwriting process from the perspective of the parents. Yeah, that's one.
I would say not so much the recording, but having the recording, the product. Yeah. And this is very, very simple. It's just, using your cell phone, probably. You clean it and then you just, and then there are specific situations when we work prenatally. So if we have a mother who is pregnant and she's ICU, then we would do a more elaborated song, because we would record the fetal heartbeats, and then we would put them, in GarageBand or whatever, software, and then because we have a sort of more time for preparation until the baby is born. So, but it's really quite simple, and parents are not really. Then we have parents who went with the song to recording studios, and they send us. And it's just amazing what parents, they take the song and then go to professional recording studio and they record it professional. And sometimes mothers send us like 3 different versions of the same song, one a pop, and then the other one a more rock sound with lead guitars, and the other more classical with piano. It's just amazing how parents still, after hospitalization, being engaged with the song. Yeah, so there's a huge
brilliant
spectrum.
That's great, because I think you answered the next questions as well. That's wonderful. And then, do you give parents any resources or training about the benefits of singing during kangaroo care?
Yeah, well, we constantly educate parents about a conscious use of music, but often it's not. Well, we have a more structured, form that we hand out to parents before they go home about, tips about how to use music at home. But actually, most of the things they learn during the music therapy process, because we don't have to then tell them, like if you use music for sleeping that or that, because they just do it themselves and they do it with us, and then they just learn about it. But we would make sure that constantly we would leave some, condensed information about, and this could be just a comment they make, oh, did you notice how your baby smiled at you when you used that tone of voice? Just being very gentle with education and very caring also, in a way that the parent feels affirmed.
Yeah.
And not we are lecturing someone about, because, as we talk today, everyone knows how to musically care for someone. That's just part of who we are. And then, tapping into that resource in the NICU for parents can be a challenge because there's so many things going on and anxiety, but they already know, everyone knows how to sing for someone to go to sleep. You know, it's how this might look different from culture to culture, but everyone knows how to do that, even 3-year-olds. That's nothing we have to learn. But we sometimes they need help in tapping into that resource. I think that's part of what we think about education.
I was going to say that must be quite different when the baby is preterm. Quite significant.
Yeah.
So I would have thought they must have questions sometimes about whether it's going to work in the same way. The responses
Yeah. So when we start working with parents, so the question was about if the baby is preterm, you know, if that would be different, because sometimes parents have questions. They have a lot of questions. When we approach a parent at the first session, we would explain to them why we are here. So in that explaining, there's specific information that, you know, the baby already can identify your voice, you know, your voice is important, you know, is there specific music you listen to during pregnancy? So we would, in a very gentle way, pick up some of the questions parents usually have. And if they have more, they would just ask us. And that's something that happens. They would constantly, at a point, you know, ask us, what about, can I use my cell phone for playing back music? And we can say, well, yes, noticing that your voice is, you know, the preferred sound, but if you use a cell phone, don't put it right next to the ear, you know, just because of how auditory system functioning is developing over gestational age, and you know what types of frequencies are perceived first and afterwards. So there's a way of threading in that information.
That question from the hospital about reinstituting justification using music, that is a kind of foundational.
Of course, yes.
The added value
Yes.
of music therapists.
Yeah, of course.
Asking those questions, no one else will do that.
Yeah.
So you're telling how they're going to respond to the voice, how they can record, how they can use that device.
Yeah.
That they are perceiving music in ways that are really important, and suddenly you open up this whole world, really transform.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why the data doesn't.
Yeah, could be, but
because you've kind of solved all their problems.
but you
There's nothing else left to measure. I don't know what we're doing now.
but you're totally right. I think we have a very specific knowledge, and within the wide universe that is music therapy, you know, there's specific knowledge that you have about, you know, rehabilitation, and I have about, you know, how auditory system is developing over time. You know, like, you know, when certain sounds might be more adequate or not, or frequencies, so to say. And the hospital values expert knowledge, because if someone has a question about music and sounds, they come to us. And it should be that way. I also go and ask the physiotherapist if they have a question about, you know, movement or whatever. So, yeah.
So we're nearing the end of the time. There's a few more questions, but should we?
2 minutes.
No, I'm
Does
fine.
anybody have a question? There's 2 minutes.
Yes.
I really could see potential songwriting back in the presentation. And for me, because I'm from Hong Kong and we literally speak Cantonese.
Yes.
And Cantonese is a language that consists of 9 tones. So basically, it's very difficult for us to like create some kind of words or lyrics and match like an improvised melody like within a session or 2 sessions. It is a really big like controversy, like a music go first or lyrics go first in Hong Kong stuff. So, but I still appreciate the potential of songwriting. But I'm thinking about how can we try to make it work or like really bring it into our therapy session.
So the comment was about in Cantonese, and since that's a different language, it's divided into tones. So how, I think you're the expert then when you go back to Hong Kong, thinking about, you know, what that you've learned here, CIMTR there, what is culturally appropriate and adequate, and how can you transform because you're the expert on your culture. And I think that's something very important. Wherever you go and learn something, see something new, always ask yourself, how can I use that and transform it in a way that's culturally appropriate for the place where I am. So, but yeah, I get you. You will tell us in a couple of years how if that happened.
So maybe a final question, because there's a couple people interested in this, regarding the impacts of this process on staff and the staff-parent relationship as well.
Yeah. So when we think in a systemic way, we know that the impact on the infant is not only, health trajectory is not only impacted by the parents and not only by the staff or the professionals, but also by the relationships between the staff and the parents. Because if there's a nurse and he or she didn't go well with the parents, the care she provides for the infant of those parents will be impacted. So sometimes in specific situations, we have actually written songs with the staff. End of life care is one of these situations, because when infants stay quite long in the NICU, and the team forms a very strong relationship with that. So in a way, and I remember a couple of years ago, the head nurse, she wrote a song that we played at the funeral for the baby that passed away. So that was a way of getting the staff into also some creative work that's been beneficial, but it also reflected the relationship that she had with the infant and the family. So there's specific ways of working around that, but we would definitely, we are not responsible for the relationship between the nurses and the parents, so we're not responsible for everything. We cannot fix everything. But the nurse, the healthcare staff very much appreciates music therapy also because it opens up new ways for them to interact with the parents. They come in and then we just would say, everyone who enters sings, and they know it's a joke, but then sometimes they would start, I know that song, and they would sing a couple of seconds with us and the parents. And it's just these brief moments where they can engage musically, also and participate and say, I like that song. And then they sometimes would propose songs and even just breathe. But yeah, and the Colombian culture anyways is very musically and dance oriented and body oriented. So it's quite easy, but yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks. I'll invite Annie to come up and finish off.
Thank you, Mark. Special value for many reasons, not only because you spent time here studying, did your PhD research, so it's wonderful to welcome you back, but also because normally we've been doing our CIMTR lectures virtually, so to be able to have you here in this space is incredibly special. I know we couldn't get to everybody's questions, but if you can see Mark put his email address on his slides, so you can reach out to Mark and ask him those questions that we couldn't get to. Come back to the video, it'll be uploaded, so if you want to see the video and take in that information again, as well as look up the research that Mark has been doing not only with his team, but with colleagues all around the world. And we look forward to this study coming out in the very near future. So thank you so much.
Thank you.